I wanted to say thank you to everybody that came here. Thank you for the media for bringing attention to the issues that I espoused. I do hope that at some point the truth about Upper Big Branch is told and that miners are kept safer as a result of that. My prosecution, I still feel comfortable will be overturned during, before the end of the year, or invalidated, I think they call it. I can tell you that with the experiences I've had, all of you need to be concerned when the federal government's going into a courtroom and saying that your free speech should be limited because your free speech, quote, troubles the United States. That's a concern. When they can indict you and take all your guns and keep them for 3 years while you're under a misdemeanor probation, it should be a concern. When the prosecution can both lie and misrepresent the truth and destroy documents and then admit to it and testify to it, and nothing happens, you should be concerned. And certainly I'm concerned, but I don't know what more I can do. I stood in front of this train in West Virginia a number of times and made a big difference, but in this case, unfortunately, I wasn't able to get it done. And, I feel good about what I've done. I feel very good tonight. I feel like I'm going to have a much more time to dedicate to my family and to mailing and to traveling and going to places like Paris and so forth, so you don't feel sorry for me. I know most of you, most of West Virginians are envious of what I've done, and as Rob and them know, I tell the story, which a few of you haven't heard, that the first home I had cost $750, and I was raised by a single mom. We used, the second house, or that was the poorhouse, I call it. The second house was the outhouse. We used the outhouse for the first 8 years of my life before we had plumbing, and for the first 12 years at the grade school where we only had like 18 students. I eventually got a job in a coal mine as a teenager, and first time was able to bathe in a place that had electric heat, which was wonderfully warm compared to what I was accustomed to at the bathhouse. And then I made it to the White House at the private dining table with President Bush, and then they put me in the big house. So I can tell you that through all those houses, I learned more in the poorhouse and the big house than I learned in the other houses. And there's a lot wrong in this country, but there's a lot of good people out there trying to do something about it, and I hope that people respect what I did. I know I have a reputation as being radical, and I've told people that you don't make fundamental change if you're not radical, according to Webster's dictionary. So I feel very good about the effort we made, very bad about the fact that we failed West Virginians. Somehow we couldn't convince them. I was just telling someone that, having spent a lot of time in Nevada and a lot of time in West Virginia, when your heart's somewhere like West Virginia, I can tell you every county and, who's running and what the issues are and all that. But in Nevada, where I'm a casual, a resident, I can't even tell you who's running. And I think that's what happens, like in West Virginia, a lot of people that vote, they may be going down there to vote for a cousin that's running for county court clerk or something, and they just vote. And so I don't, I can relate to the fact that you can lose an election like this, even though your campaign platform is in exact concert with what the people of West Virginia want and should want, whether it's jobs or drugs or, build the wall, whatever. We were in exact concert with what has made Trump 84 to 87% positive and lost this election badly. But again, I think it's people not paying attention. And again, I'm not critical of that because that's understandable too. Soccer moms, people that have to get up every morning and go to work, people that maybe are focused on church or community activities. They really don't have the time to invest in understanding the issues and who's representing those issues. And so I can understand that we didn't reach everyone and the negative campaigning turned a lot of people off. But the only thing I can tell you is that I feel very good about what I did. I feel very good about my life, that's been mostly in West Virginia. And I'm going to make the most of the rest of the time I have left. And I will take a look at the rest of this general election in this race, because I'm greatly concerned that we're losing 63,000 people a year to the drug epidemic, and we elected a guy that's directly tied to the very distributor that was very involved in that. So it concerns me a great deal. But exactly what I can do about it, I'm not sure at this point. So with that, I'll take any questions that anybody has, if you have any. Well, although most of you are probably in a hurry to get home. So,
got one comment, Don.
Thank you.
Joe must go.
I agree with that. You know, Trader Joe, the only thing about Trader Joe is he's ineffective too. If he was real effective, it'd be even worse. But you know, the one thing I'll tell you is you're not going to get businessmen to come to West Virginia when both of your senior senators or both of your senators declare a CEO who's not been at the operation that had the accident for 10 years guilty before you ever go to trial. And you're not going to have a good country when the president and the head regulator of the agency that oversees mining declares that they know what happened before anyone goes back underground. You have to have process. The only thing that protects us and protects you know, our livelihood and our freedoms is process. And when you violate the process of a fair trial, you violate the process of an independent investigation. And when you've got a media that, if you will, buys the story. I tell everybody all the time, and it may be the reason I lost tonight, is the best liars win these elections. And we forget when they get elected that they're in the government. So you got to be really careful, because people will say anything to get elected in these campaigns, and that's one reason that I probably not very good at this game. But in any event, it's really important that you stay aware of your human rights and stay aware of the right to a fair trial and free speech, and the right to bear guns or have guns, because there's a lot of people out there that would very quickly take them away from you if they have the opportunity. Anything else or comments? Yes. You know, Mitch McConnell is a quintessential politician. Like Joe mentioned, they move with wherever the winds are flowing, and they don't do anything to take care of the country. When you got $22 trillion in debt, 600 and some $billion in interest, and you're fortunate enough to only have a 3% interest rate, you're at risk. I mean, I can remember the Reagan years when it was 12%, and at 12%, you know, we would be
standing, so we're going to speak a little bit low out of respect for him, but he officially concedes tonight in this race here in West Virginia in the Republican Senate primary. One of the messages he wanted to send, though, was that he wanted to make sure that this race and this election doesn't get hijacked by Republicans who are not in line with the president or in line with West Virginia voters.
It's one of the biggest names in the state, but came up short tonight. I think it's important to remember that as much as Republicans might try to extrapolate ideas about what this says about the president and the White House and Trump's footprint here, this is a man that had a really rocky past, who has been very well known in the state, and a lot of voters we talked to already had ideas about him well before he got into this race.
He says the one thing that he thinks cost him this race is President Donald Trump. He says the only thing that he can think of that happened in the closing days after a strong debate, everything that happened in the last 7 days, just yesterday, President Trump saying, don't vote for this guy. One Donald to another Don, bad news for him.
I can tell you there's one group of folks who are disappointed that Don Blankenship did not win, besides the folks in this room, and that's Democrats in the state. They were really hoping that Joe Manchin would go up against Don Blankenship. They thought that was the best outcome for them, the biggest chance for Joe Manchin to keep his seat.
And right now it's a two-man race, right? Morrisey versus Jenkins. We haven't called this way to project it yet. It's been very close, especially over the last hour. So this is going to be a very important time, the next 20 minutes, to see if that race can be called.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.